And in the house with us, like I said before, we are talking all things Wigton this evening. So it's been a minute since we talked to Wigton, and since then they even have a new name. They are now Wigton Energy, and also, I believe, a new leader. I believe the last time we spoke to Wigton, it was it would have been Earl who was at the helm. Now we have Wigton CEO Gary Barrow. So good evening, Gary. Nice to have you.
Good evening, Kalila. It's good to be here, and good evening to your audience also.
This is your first time on the show, right?
It is, yes.
It is. So great to have you. Well, tell the audience a little bit about yourself since you are new to taking stock. What is your background and how long have you been with Wigton?
Well, I've been with Wigton since May of this year. I worked previously with JPS as the COO and also at Cable and Wireless at one point. And I spent some time in Trinidad with the utility there. My background, of course, is electrical engineering and business. So again, really happy to be here and glad to be here to talk about Wigton.
Right. So extensive background in energy and electrical engineering. So the right man to take the helm over there at Wigton. What's it been like these past few months since you've entered the company?
I would say really very exciting. We have a really great team at Wigton, and we are really excited about what is happening. We have just recently been awarded the 50 megawatt of 100 megawatt tender by the GPE. So that is really a big thing for us. In fact, we are going to be within the next 2 years building over 70 megawatts of solar, utility scale solar here in Jamaica. 20 of that being the replacement of our part of our current renewable offerings. So we have some big projects ahead of us. Once we have completed that 70, we would have more than doubled our capacity. As it is right now, we have about 62 megawatts of wind. So, we will be well over 120, 130 megawatts of renewable energy. So we are really very excited about that. And of course, you would have seen, Kalila, that our stock price has been doing really, really well. At the beginning of the year, it was 73 cents. And I believe it closed at about 128 today. In fact, I would suggest that it may well be the best performing stock on the stock market this year. So that's, well over 75% increase. So a lot of exciting things are happening at Wigton right now.
I was just trying to bring it up, but I'll get back to that. So we definitely want to talk more about this new project that you've been awarded. But first, let's look at the name change. So we've known you since listing and before as Wigton Windfarm, and now you are officially Wigton Energy. So what went into that name change?
Well, again, another sort of exciting development in recent times. We actually started with the change in the trade name, and subsequently we actually changed the registered name to Wigton Energy. You will know that it's been about 20 years that Wigton started its operations in Manchester, and it was primarily wind. We were pioneers then, and today we are the largest renewable energy provider in Jamaica, and I believe the largest wind facility in the English-speaking Caribbean. So our background has been primarily wind. We are really very, very strong believers in sustainable development, and it is matching that passion with the opportunities that are being presented by the technological advances now, that we find ourselves looking to diversify our revenue streams, and with a strong emphasis in solar. So we thought it fit in to signal to the market, to signal to our potential clients, and I would suggest to the Caribbean and to the world, that we are bigger than just wind right now. And as I mentioned, being awarded the recent contract for 50 megawatts, I think, is really a testimony to the direction in which we are going. So we're really excited. The Wigton Energy represents the change to show that we are actually going to be diversifying our revenue streams, and that we are going to be pursuing growth through diversification in various forms of renewable energy.
Right. So congratulations on winning that that project. So tell us more about it. 50 megawatts is going to be solar?
Yes, it is going to be solar. So we went through a tender process. The general procurement entity was established by the government to basically develop a process and to oversee the administration of the generation capacity through a competitive process. So some time ago, the GPE put out a tender, and there are several organizations that participated in that tender. They evaluated the various participants based on, the technical capabilities, the design, and I would suggest, more importantly, the price. And Wigton was one of two companies that was awarded a part of the 100 megawatts. So we were awarded 50 megawatts, and another company was awarded the other 50 megawatts. So we went through a competitive process. We won in that process, and we shortly will go through the formal process of being awarded a license. We will have to sign a power purchase agreement with a single buyer. In this case, it will be JPS. We obviously will be looking at, signing contracts with our EPC provider, that is the engineering, procurement, and construction company that we'll be working with. We'll have to get environmental permits, and of course, we would have to agree the financing structure, and we are already in discussion with various financing entities about financing the project.
Mm-hmm. Now, so where would this facility be located, or that hasn't been determined yet?
Yes, it has been determined. It will be in Lioneltown. We have done all the engineering studies. That has
Where
been
is that?
completed.
Like Clarendon?
Yes, in Lioneltown, yes. That is near Yorton, in that vicinity.
Mm-hmm.
So that has been decided, and we have the land lease in place. We have done the various engineering studies that are necessary. So yes, the location has already been decided on.
So Wigton's specialty up to now has been wind energy. Do you have the expertise in-house to do solar? And I know you're coming from JPS, you're coming from a different background, but what about the rest of the complement? Are you going to have to hire people, or you already have the technical expertise in-house?
Yes, well, I would submit that, contrary to belief, we have been really dabbling in solar for quite a while. We have worked with a strategic partner, IEC, Innovative Energy, and we have been a part of some significant projects. Many of you would have passed the very, very big solar installation on your way to the Norman Manley International Airport. We were a part of that program. We have developed a lease arrangement with hotels, a couple of hotels. We are working on a project, significantly large project in St. Elizabeth, and we'll be doing something in Mobile, all solar. So yes, we have been in the business of solar, but as you mentioned, it wasn't our original DNA, and so we are putting a number of things in place. We are working with strategic partners who have done this type of development all over the world. So for the 50 megawatt, we're working with a strategic partner. We're still in negotiations at this point in time, but they're really big company. So we are also working at developing our own teams. I mean, most of our team already are quite capable in wind, in solar, in renewable energy, but we are actually providing some specialized training right now. So through internal trading through new infusion into the organization and working with strategic partners, we are positioning ourselves as the best in the business for solar going forward.
Okay, good to know. So we have a few questions online. Let me start taking some of the questions from the audience. Tavares wants to know, which other listed company will you be teaming up with to complete the 50 megawatt project?
Well, we are not actually teaming up with a listed company at this point in time. We are still, as I said, talking to a main provider right now. Not a listed company, it's an overseas company who has done these sort of developments all over the world. Just, recognizing that 50 megawatt is not a residential installation. It is a very significant installation with various technologies. We have to get it right. So we want to be sure that we are up there in terms of, bringing in experts that know this business and have done this all over the world. So we are working with a particular partner right now. It may be that there are other local partners that will actually participate as a part of, a number of companies who may well be involved in the development of this particular project. And some of them may well be companies that are listed here in Jamaica, but the main company is not a listed Jamaican company.
Okay. Philip wants to know, where is your joint venture with IEC involved in any new projects after Essex Valley?
So we are always looking at projects. There are several projects that we are pursuing right now together. So yes, they are an important strategic partner, and we're going to be working together going forward. And there are several proposals that we are working on right now for several organizations within Jamaica.
Next question comes from Mikhail, who wants to know, any plans for nuclear in the future?
No, not at this point in time. That form of energy is still a bit controversial. We are just branching out from wind right now. We want to focus really on solar energy. We believe that there's an abundance of sun here in Jamaica and in the Caribbean. And I don't believe that we have sufficiently capitalized on this natural form of energy. So that will be our primary focus right now. I'm not going to say we're ruling it out. We know that the nuclear technology is becoming safer. There are small reactors now that are quite safe, but at this point in time, that is not on our roadmap.
And Levar has a question about the financing for this project. He wants to know, would you consider an APO for raising capital to finance the project, or private equity to reduce the burden of high interest rates on a loan?
Yes, and Levar, that's a good question. We're looking at our financing structure as you speak, and we're talking to various financiers. We have not really excluded any particular financing structure. We know at a minimum it will be a combination of equity and debt, but we have not ruled out APO as a part of the equity contribution to minimize the reliance on debt. So we are looking at various structures, and we're talking to several potential investors in this particular project.
How much would you be looking to raise?
So we are right now still in discussion with the EPC contractor about the final pricing for the project. So at this point in time, I don't really want to disclose until we have closed those negotiations in terms of giving any indication to our provider.
Right. Right. I remember when Earl Barrett was on this program and we were talking about, plans for Wigton, and there was an intention to pursue renewable energy projects across the Caribbean. Has any progress been made on that?
Yes. So, as I mentioned, we are going to be out there aggressively pursuing projects within Jamaica, but we haven't ruled out the Caribbean because we believe that there's so much potential throughout the Caribbean, and especially the English-speaking Caribbean. I mean, there's such an abundance of solar, of wind, of geothermal, and I don't believe that the Caribbean has really taken full advantage of the renewable energy availability. We believe there are a lot of opportunities. We are talking to a couple of companies and countries right now. I am aware that there are some countries in the Caribbean that will be issuing tenders, and we intend to participate. We are having preliminary discussions with some companies already. So yes, our vision statement is that we really intend to be the center of excellence for renewable energy production within the Caribbean.
I see some people asking, Dahlia wanted to know if we're talking about a new power company alongside JPS. No, Dahlia. So Wigton is a renewable energy company that currently is and providing energy to JPS. So it's one of the independent power providers, and they're looking to actually expand that capacity as well. So Gary, let's look at your numbers.
Yes.
Some pretty good numbers coming out of this year, coming out of your most recent reports. The Q2 numbers were quite impressive. Revenues from the period were up 13%. You went from 1.2 billion to 1.4 billion. So the revenues were nice, but the profits were down, I think like 39%. So what happened there? What impacted profitability?
Well, let me start off by saying we are really very pleased with the performance so far this year. Our operating profit moved from 400 million to 600 million, and our profit before tax moved from, I believe, 187 million to 413 million. So those are significant movements. And I think we need to understand that when we're talking about operating profit and when we are talking about profit before tax, we are talking about really operational performance of the organizations. To have those significant increases, 121% in the second instance, I think is suggesting that the company is doing really well. Yes, we did have a dip in the profit after tax, and there's a clear explanation. You would know, Kalila, that the government recently, and rightly so, decreased the corporate tax rate from 33.3% down to 25%, right? And I think that was really very good. There's a national energy policy. A policy cannot stand on its own. It must be supported by regulation and specific action by the government. And I think in this instance, it is good that the government made a decision to decrease the corporate tax. That will encourage more companies, renewable companies, participating in the business of renewable energy. As a result of that, however, we would have accrued tax at a higher rate in the previous year. So what happened is that we had a one-off instance of a tax income, which would have represented the difference between the 33% and the 25%. So we got a significant tax deferred benefit last year, the second quarter of last year. So what you're seeing there is just the difference. But I should say, Kalila, that we will actually be benefiting from this lower rate, which is the 33% going to 25% going forward.
So that big dip in profits is a one-off. We shouldn't expect to see that continue.
Yes, it's really just a one-off. We would have gotten a significant benefit last year, which shareholders were very happy with, and of course, would have supported a dividend payout more than just the capital appreciation. But as I said, the 25% going forward is going to be something that the shareholders will continue to enjoy.
All right, looking forward to that for sure. We have a few more questions from the audience. So Sean wants to know, what share of the energy producing market does Wigton currently have?
So I believe the capacity of the market now is in the region of about 1,000 megawatts. The peak load, I think, is somewhere in the region of 670 megawatts. And Wigton currently has 62.7 megawatts in wind. Of course, once we do the 50 megawatt project, we'll have that additional amount. So we'll well be over 120 megawatts. So if you think of the peak load being, 650, 670 megawatts, Wigton could easily be, if you're thinking of in terms of capacity, be easily, 10-15% of that very soon.
Wow. Nice to see that in the mix. Next question. I think this is a good question coming from Levar. With an increase in natural disasters, specifically hurricanes in the Caribbean, what plans are being implemented to prevent major damage as we have seen to JPS systems?
Yes, so once you're in the Caribbean, you're in a zone, a hurricane zone. We recognize that we have really very good insurance, so that is one of the protections that we actually have in place. The turbines, interestingly, have a number of facilities that allow you to actually lock them and to protect from hurricane. It doesn't mean that you won't have some hurricane impact. A part of our plans in terms of diversification is not just revenue diversification, but also location diversification. What we have seen in the past is that hurricanes, as in the case of Beryl, tends to have a greater impact on a certain part of the island. So in building the 50 megawatts in Lionel Town, we are creating some geographic diversity, which will also help. And by also doing solar versus wind, there's also a product diversification. So all of those factors were taken into account as we look towards the choosing a particular location and choosing a particular type of technology for renewable energy.
Question from Lance. Is battery energy storage system part of your future strategy? If you're moving to solar now, the battery energy storage is a consideration.
Yes, absolutely. Batteries, the price of batteries have fallen precipitously in the past 5 years. That is definitely a part of our strategy as we look at solutions going forward, both for large commercial customers and industrial customers. That is certainly something that we're going to be providing. Going forward, also, we believe that there is the intent of the government and in particular the GPE and the ministry to include batteries going forward. So in participating in future tenders, we will in fact have batteries in our portfolio, our target to have batteries within our portfolio. So yes, that's a good question, and yes, that will be a part of our portfolio offerings.
I'll take the last question from Philip. Leave it to Philip to ask this question. Somebody always has to ask it every single week. When can we look forward to bigger dividends?
Well, yes, and that is, you can always expect that questions. The dividends is something that is determined by the board, and we have to balance the reinvestment in the company. We're going to be doing this 50 megawatts. We're going into industrial. We're going into large commercials. We're looking at future tenders and so on. And as far as our shareholders are concerned, we want to be sure that we are making the right decisions for our shareholders. So we have to balance providing declaring dividends to satisfy our shareholders' expectation, but also retaining earnings to allow us to invest and ensure that you, our shareholders, are able to benefit from the growth of the organization. So, we meet as a board. There's a discussion about the profitability, about our investment portfolio, and decisions are made accordingly to optimize decision to ensure that the shareholders gets the best deal.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Anything else you want to share with us before you leave?
Yeah, well, I'll just say that, recently, Kalila, we have revisited our strategic plan. A lot of the discussions today reflect some changes. We are going to be, over the next year, focusing on business efficiency. We're already putting in several new technology, best-in-class technologies, so that we can, pride ourselves as being the center of excellence for renewable energy. We spoke about growth through diversification. That is sort of the second pillar of our 5-pillar strategy. We believe also in building an agile workforce, competitive culture. That's the third. You would have seen strong indications that we are also repositioning our brand to show that we are going to be much larger than just Wind going forward. And as previously mentioned, we're going to be working with strategic partners. So those are really the 5 pillars going forward. And so I'll finish with that, Wigton is really a growth organization. We are excited about the future. We believe in a sustainable future. That is why we wake up every morning to go to work. We are passionate about it. And we believe that it's really an exciting future of renewable energy going forward.
Absolutely. Many opportunities in that space going forward indeed. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.